Well guys, this morning I'm comparing the Vortex Viper 10x42, Razor HD 10x42, and the Razor UHD 10x42. We're doing some through-scope footage with the capture system, allowing me to get 1x and 3x when I need, and we're going to be comparing glass quality. So we'll jump right into some examples and see what you're getting for the price increase. Alright, we've got the Viper HD 10x42 on the left, Razor HD 10x42 in the center, and Razor UHD 10x42 on the right. As always, I'm using full manual settings with uncompressed footage on an iPhone 15. Before I start, I will note that these tests are not perfect and I've found a few inconsistencies, but everything I mention is supported by what I saw with my own eyes. The first thing we'll look at is field of view. This one did surprise me a bit. The UHD had a smaller actual field of view than the other two, and I'm not sure why, but I do know that I only noticed this once I got the footage on my computer. Eye fatigue was minimal with all three of these options. The second thing we'll look at is edge clarity. You'll see that the bottom of all three is fairly blurry, but when using my eye, I didn't notice this near as much. What I did notice is that the Razor HD and UHD had good edge-to-edge clarity, with the Viper being only slightly behind. Color profiles are quite similar, with the Viper having a slightly warmer image than the other two. Contrast seems a little higher in the Razor HD, with the Viper and UHD having a softer image. All that being said, let's see how they hold up against the lens test chart. I'm filming on the 3x lens to get a closer look at the actual glass quality. Each optic is under the exact same conditions and placement. We'll use this test to highlight a few different areas of focus, then test those theories in real-world examples. As you can see, the Razor HD undoubtedly wins this test. Interestingly enough, I couldn't get the UHD to get any sharper than this, and trust me, I've done this test multiple times and confirmed these examples with my own eyes through the glass. So, in high contrast situations, the Razor HD has better sharpness, but it also has better contrast and coloration. The whites are whiter, blacks are blacker, and the colors in the color ring have a little more separation. So does that mean the Razor HD is better than the UHD? Well, not yet. Remember, the Diamondback performed better than the Viper on this test, but in the real world, the Viper gave a more usable image than the Diamondback. So here we are with a real world example, and the Razor HD does seem to hold that first place position at first glance. The Viper struggles to separate the texture just a bit, but also notice that the sun is behind the clouds on that example, so it's not totally fair. The Razor HD and UHD have very similar light conditions, but there's a few differences in the image. First off, the HD has a brighter image and higher contrast, but that doesn't mean it's the winner. If you look closely at the UHD, you'll find a cleaner and more subtle image. I think the UHD wins on this one, but both options would function very similar. So let's look a little closer. Again, right away, you see that the Viper has a softer and less clear image. However, it's half the price of the Razor HD and a third the price of the UHD. Comparing the HD to UHD, again, there's a few differences in highlights and contrast, but overall they function much the same. Humor me though, and take a look at this rock here. The UHD definitely carries the texture a little better, and if you look at this dead tree, you'll notice a sharper and more readable image. I don't know why the HD performs better on the paper test, but with my eyes I found the UHD to have a slight edge in almost all conditions. Take a look at this ditch here as well. I think the HD's high contrast is actually a slight downfall. Here you'll see the same differences. The Viper's a bit blurrier, but still good. Colors are a little softer, and clarity is definitely best in the center. The Razor HD has a sharp image and good clarity throughout, but the overall image has high contrast and slightly less texture than the UHD. Look at the difference in texture of the tree bark right here. Everyone knows that glass quality really matters when the light begins to fade, so let's take a look at some low light examples. Well, so far, they're still very similar. I think the only difference I can spot here is in the clarity of the grass, but I don't know what else to say about that, so let's go to the next example. Alright, this one I can work with. The Viper is noticeably darker now. In fact, I'd say it's near unusable at this distance, and this was taken 15 minutes after sunset on a west-facing slope. Aside from light transmission, the image of the Viper still holds up pretty well until it's simply too dark. The Razor HD and UHD are still very similar. Again, we see the blur at the bottom of both. I don't know what caused that. My eyes did not see that, so I assume it's a testing flaw. As far as details go, both perform quite similarly, with the highlights in the HD giving it a slight edge in this terrain under these conditions. Let's look a little closer. The Viper's pretty much done, but the HD and UHD are still giving a decent image. The HD is brighter than the UHD, but the UHD continues to have better texture. It's especially noticeable in this rim here and this tree bark. I think the UHD does have a sharper image overall in low light conditions. If you're still listening to me talk, hit the like button below. So here we are in very low light, and I was slightly surprised to see that the UHD actually shows a brighter image in the shadows, but not by much. The Viper is simply too dark to use in this light. When using my eyes, I found the Viper to be probably 10% darker than the Razors, but I really struggled to pick out too much difference between the Razor HD and UHD, aside from the fact that the UHD felt more clear in my eyes. Point being, if you're trying to tell the difference between the HD and UHD, you're going to have to look very closely. Is the UHD better? I'd say yes. Is it worth the extra cash? That depends on your budget and honestly, your eyes. For me, I'd save some weight and some cash and stick to the Razor HDs. I would be happy to use the Viper glass as well, any day. It's going to give you around 5 minutes less time at last light, and the image is not as sharp as the Razor, but they're still very enjoyable to look through. And I really did have a hard time telling the difference between the three when using my own eyes in a lot of conditions. That's all I have for you guys. If you've got questions, leave them in the comments, and I'd encourage you guys to share what setup works for you in different conditions. We've got other videos comparing objective lens diameter and power. Click on the end screen if you want to check those out. If you're in the market for some new glass or a new digiscope setup, buy it at Gearful and help support us as we try to bring you more videos like this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.